Hey, so the most important part of any print-on-demand product is the design. If your design is clunky or weird or misplaced fonts or position or just looks really weird on the shirt, it's not going to work. And I've seen this time and time again with a lot of people in my memberships where they're doing everything right, but honestly their designs just aren't doing it. And that's why they're not getting any sales. So if you're not getting any sales with your print on demand products, and it doesn't matter if it's t-shirts or hoodies or sweatshirts or coffee mugs or message cards or anything, it all goes back to the design. What's on the actual product matters. So I'm going to use t-shirts as an example today because there is one really good article here. You can go to Google, you can type in t-shirt design tips, but this one from Rush Order Tees is one of the best articles I've seen on this. And because they show like examples of things. So number one is the size. You don't want it to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small at the same time. You want it to be like just fit right proportionally. So on the left, they show an example here of a design that is just too big. It looks really weird. But on the right, it's sized kind of perfectly, like just centered in the middle of the chest, and it makes sense. Size matters. And I see too many times where too many designs are way, way too big and they just look awful. So make sure you get the size right. Number two is your placement. You want to make sure you're kind of up near the neckline. You don't want to be down on the stomach because if you do, you'll end up with a shirt like this, which has low and off center placement, which looks kind of weird, right? If you were wearing that, you'd want that shirt to be, that design to be up higher. And typically, this happens when the design file has a little bit of a transparent area on it and you didn't notice, and maybe you put it on to the print on your print on demand supplier and you moved it around and it looked good, but then when they went to print it, maybe it moved down a bit. So get the placement right. That always matters too, because you got to think like, would I wear the shirt on the right or the shirt on the left? Like, of course, the shirt on the left is the one that you'd prefer. The next one is focus on fonts and the typography. This is something I see a lot when people are doing their own shirts because with Canva and with Photoshop and with Illustrator and all those tools, they're wonderful and they work really well. But if you have the wrong font, it's not going to work at all. And it's going to look really bad. If people can't read what you have on your shirt, or they have to squint, or they have to like zoom in to see it, because you got to think you're going to be running ads to these, or you're going to be showing these online in some way, shape, or form. You want to make sure that people can actually read it. So this is a really good example. And another reason that I really like this article is on the left, that's a single font, which looks really weird. Like I went shopping on Black Friday and something I got this lousy, like it's hard to read, right? But on the right, it says I went shopping on Black Friday and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. So if you can't read it, your customers aren't going to be able to read it either, and they're not going to buy it. And I see this kind of thing more often than not with all the people that I'm coaching in my memberships. They come out with some designs that I'm like, oh, come on, like you got the right quote, that makes sense, but the way that you put that on the shirt makes no sense at all. So you have to be really careful with that. Number four is take care with composition, which means like the layout of your shirt. So an awkward layout is one where, like on the right here, the image is on the side, and then you've got this, the kind of top piece, and then you got fonts going down the right on an angle, and it looks really weird compared to the left side where you actually have a nice arch on the text, and then the font is split, and then the image is in the middle. So it's more of, which they worded it perfectly, like a thoughtful composition compared to what just is straight up an awkward layout. So make sure you take care with that. This is something too that I see way too often because people are like, they're using AI to generate these shirts. They're finding some really good stuff, but the composition is just really, really weird. And then down here, it shows a really good example of a good composition and the bad. And the bad, the awkward one, it doesn't work. You're not going to see very many bestsellers with an awkward layout. They're all going to have a really nice, thoughtful, well-balanced composition to them. And number five is, of course, a simple one. Just ensure the quality of the image. You want to make sure that you're using a high enough DPI that when they go to print it, it's not going to be all pixely or look kind of bad. So they say ideally 200 up to 300 is best. Typically images on the web are like 72 dpi, and that's not at the size that you want to be printed. So especially when you're using some AI program, you want to make sure you upscale that image to a higher DPI. And there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of free programs that you can do it with. Okay, not finally, but number 6 is colors. Color choice is the most important, not only for designs, but if you want screen printing, you want to make sure it fits your budget. So more colors equals more cost per item on screen printing typically. And it looks weird. Like too many colors is going to look odd. But if you have like a few colors, maybe 2 or 3, it always looks better. And you can see they even did an example of even a white and then a white and yellow and then a 3 color, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 color. And basically like even the white one or the 2 color one looks really good. And they went with the 3 color one in that case. But just be mindful of that when you're doing it, as well as consider the contrast. So typically darker shirts will sell a lot more than lighter shirts, but there are some instances and there are some niches where the lighter shirts will actually sell better than the darker shirts. So overall, I would say darker shirts sell better, but you want to make sure that people can actually read what's on it. If you have your design too dark, it gets, like they say here, it gets lost. So you want it to make sure that it's clear and visible. And you see this is a really nice layout too. So that one you can see, that one you can't because it fades into the shirt. So be careful with your shirt colors and your designs as well. And an easy way to do that is just, I like to run mine through my mockup generator in order to actually see it on a shirt and what it'll look like. And I've got it set up so it'll show all the wrinkles and it'll show all the highlights and the shadows and all that stuff, which makes it look a lot more realistic too. So they don't really talk about mockups in this one, but I would say once we get there, I'll talk about that in a second. And then invert negative images. So this is a negative impression and this is a positive impression. This one on the left looks a lot better than the one on the right. And that is just basically taking the colors and changing them and making sure that some of the t-shirt will show through the transparent part of the image too. That makes the image look a lot better on a t-shirt. So if you have this situation where you've got a lot of blank space in here and then like the headphones are white, you can invert that and make it look a lot better for sure. And there you go. There's an example there. There's the original, which looks good on white, but it doesn't look as good on black. So on black, they inverted the image and now it looks really good. This is key too, and this is something that I've been seeing a lot more because of AI. Keep it simple, keep it clear. You don't have to get super complex and super busy. When you do, it just overloads the eye. And from like an artsy point of view, the principle is KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. It applies to t-shirt design as much as anything else. So stupid is just added, but even though it kind of offends people, it is good advice. So keep it simple. Like you don't have to go overboard with this. You can clean it up to make it look a little cleaner. And you got to think too, like when there's too much going on, it looks like a hodgepodge and it's not going to sell well at all. Number 10 is add borders, masks, and edges. So masks create a unique shape, or when you just use like a square image, it doesn't really look as well. Now, there are some instances where a square image can actually work, but I think the one on the left is a little bit more appealing than the one on the right, because it looks like the one on the right, they kind of just found an image, slapped it on a shirt, and that was it. Whereas the one on the left, it took some time to actually get rid of the background more than anything. Now, this bottom right one of the line can be done very easily with programs like Canva or Photopea or Photoshop or Illustrator. You can remove backgrounds. You can also put a circle around it, or you can put a border on it. You can have a plain edge or a fancy frame or a distressed edge. Sometimes that will look good, but I mean, the general consensus is that the knockout or removing completely the background always tends to look best. So that brings us to number 11, which is kind of not t-shirt designs, but your mock-ups. Those matter big time. If you get the mock-up wrong, you're going to lose the person before they even get to your website to buy something. So the whole point of mockups is to display it nicely on your store, and as well, it's to show it nicely in ads. And if your mockups are off, it's going to look weird. And we've all seen some mockups where somebody just bought a mockup and then slapped the image over it and didn't do any adjustments at all, and it never looks realistic. It looks completely fake. So if you look at your mockup and it looks completely fake, it's not going to work as well as one that you can see the little ripples in the shirt, or you can see the folds or the creases coming through the design. That's what I focus a lot of my time on with my mockup generator that I use, and it's a free one that I did with Photopea. So mockups matter, but all of these tips matter quite a bit when you're doing your t-shirts. And if you find, this can apply to coffee mugs too. This can apply to sweatshirts and hoodies and tumblers and everything else in the print-on-demand world. If you've been doing it for a while and you're not having any success, start with your designs, because your product is the number one most important thing out of anything that you're going to do. All right, let me know if that helped you out at all. Design matters, and I figured I'd shoot this video because I've shown this page quite a bit on my webinars and in my trainings. So it's a really good link, one of the best ones that I've seen for design tips. So go there. Full credit to Emery Merritt for that one. Love it. So let me know what you think in the comments.